Welcome to the Self-Publishing School podcast. This is the podcast to listen to if you're an aspiring writer or an author who wants to be more successful. On this show, you'll learn how to write and launch a book successfully, all from the top authors and people just like you who are doing it at the highest level. I'm your host, Chandler Bolt, the founder of Self-Publishing School, the author of the book called Published, and the CEO of selfpublishing.com. For free training on how to publish a book that sells 10,000 copies, go to selfpublishing.com/free training. Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Michael Hoek. Michael is the author of a book called The Girl Who Changed the World. You can see, if you're watching the video version, you can see the cover, good looking cover. The book turned out great. He's also the co-founder of It All Makes Sense, a company focused on helping people live lighter and more relaxed lives. And he's based out of Amsterdam, which is kind of fun, or the Netherlands, I guess I should say. And so, yeah, excited to chat. Michael is, he worked with us on this book, and so we've been able to see the kind of the behind the scenes of this. We just got a feature up. We'll include it in the show notes of him and his book and the behind the scenes, all that. We put a feature up on the selfpublish.com site, kind of behind the scenes of his process. But I'm excited. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
So tell me about, I guess first things first, why a novel and going the fiction approach instead of nonfiction to kind of convey the message that you wanted to convey in this book and all that stuff?
Yeah. I think as a child, I already didn't understand the world as it was. And to get there at some point, I was 7, I think. I thought, I want to understand what is going on in this world. And I literally mentioned in my mind, I want to discover the secrets of life. But I just took the route through my brains, and I started reading a lot of books. I read over 2,000 books that all related to the secrets of life, the secrets of the universe, how things were explained, religions, all spiritual stuff. And most of those books were just nonfiction. So is that I take such a book, and sometimes I just started reading in the middle, what I was interested in, and it took me a bit of it. It took some time to get to the core, or to get the whole message of the book, or even finish them. And then I read some stories, more like not novels, but the books like the Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, or the Sophie's World by Justine Gardner. Other. So those are novels, but the underlying message is the same as a nonfiction book. And hey, this is the way I would like to bring a message across. And at some point in my life, I had an inner voice that said to me, you gotta stop everything you do. You gotta give up the potential financial independence that's luring around the corner, and start doing what you came to do here in this life. And that is about the secret of life. And I thought, okay, I'll do it. And if I find it, I want to be able to explain it to other people. And I actually would like to write a book that I would have loved to read when I was a kid, or when I was a teenager or a young adult. And that's what I ended up doing. I thought I need to bring it in the form of a novel, because then it is from start to end, a story that takes you by the hand, and through the whole process, you get a deeper understanding of what I want people to grab from it.
I like that. And so, let's say from the perspective of someone listening to this, watching this, hasn't written a book, or is just kind of thinking through the process. Let's say you get a spectrum, right? Where you say, hey, I've got these lessons that I want to teach to people. You've got kind of traditional nonfiction on the left-hand side, very straightforward. Maybe here's a story, lessons, recap. Here's a story, lessons, recap, etc. Then you've got, I'd say in the middle is kind of a fable. And we've had Patrick Lencioni come on and talk about fables. I think we even had John Gordon or Bob Berg. Both have been on the show. I forget. We kind of nerded out on fables in multiple episodes. I think that's a really interesting subgenre for business books. I'd say that's kind of in the middle of this spectrum. Then you've got novels on the other side. So maybe even Anne Ryan, Atlas Shrugged, kind of, okay, novel teaching an underlying thing. So how did you think about on that on that spectrum? Like, would you consider what you did a fable? Is it a full-fledged novel? Did you think about going the fable route? Like, how did you kind of think about that?
I like to call it a management book in disguise, but it's
That's cool. I like that.
it's in between. A fable or allegory is something like very very symbolical, and I would just I wanted to just be able to take someone literally by the hand and just lead them to the store, say, hey, you see that? Hey, you do you experience that? How do you look at it? A book that adapts to the reader. And of course, I'm not patting myself on the shoulder, but I'm proud of what it is, and it went out that way. That really depending not it doesn't depend on where someone comes from. I have professors from university reading it. I have kids from 8 or 9 being read or even reading it themselves, and they both love it because it adapts to them.
Nice. Now, I know you kind of transition from the European market to publishing in the US. And so, why did you decide to publish stateside? How, I think that's when you maybe started working with us. Like, how did you think through all that?
Well, of course, I started publishing in the Netherlands, and I learned a lot about how it works in Europe. Europe is quite old-fashioned, a more hierarchical way of doing things. Um, Book became a bestseller here in a few countries in Europe, and I thought, well, I want to. Of course, it's called the girl change the world, but I want to help change the world. I want to make the world a better place, like you do, like you do with self-publishing. You give a platform to people to with every aspect. So I wanted to change the world myself, and I thought, what better place to do that, to make impact than the US? In a lot of European eyes, the US is a country that is very masculine, has a lot of influence, of course. You saved us in and after World War II. The country has such a big influence in the world, and I think it's well, if you want to make a difference in the world, start there. So that's what I thought, and I thought it would be easy just to translate it and get it in a published. And that was a, a huge underestimate. First of all, the cultural difference between Europe and America are amplified by translation. I had to change a lot of scenes in the book where people say, if you do this, your book will be banned on Amazon. If you keep it unchanged, you will be you could be sued. I thought, what? Um, Never heard any noise on that in Holland here in Europe, but that was one nice thing to encounter. And then I thought, okay, I'll just approach publishers and agents, and of course, no one want to have me because I'm an unknown for an author for them. So then I thought I followed the example of James Redfield, and James Redfield has a story in the 90s for his book The Celestine Prophecy that at some point he wasn't wanted by any publisher or agent as well, and he just printed 2,000 copies and drove around America, giving away copies to readers and bookshops out of the trunk of his car. So I thought I'll do the same. So I had 2,000 copies of the translation printed, shipped them over to LA, and started handing them out there. And of course, nobody wanted them because on LA, if you hand something out to people on the street, they don't want it because you think
Yeah.
ask money for it. I didn't know. I've never been in LA before. So at some point, I saw a lot of homeless people, and I thought I'll just give them my books, and they can give them away or just charge some money for it. So my book in LA was spread around by the homeless network, and then I just drove to San Francisco, and I saw some places with huge long lanes and all these American, for me, typical American mailboxes in front of the house, and thought, hey, that's easy. So I started driving past his house, just filling each mailbox with one book and a little note into it, until I think after 20 or 30 mailboxes, I heard a siren behind of me and a sheriff saying, "Get out of the car, sir, you're committing a federal crime." What? So I was arrested for touching these mailboxes. Of course, I now know it's a federal crime to even touch a US US mailbox. And I got myself out by saying I'm Dutch, I didn't know, and I explained what I was doing. But it took me 3 hours to talk me out of it, and that for me was quite a challenging experience because being confronted with an American sheriff, being European, that's a new experience.
Oh my gosh. What a wild story. So you published the book in the Netherlands, then you're saying, hey, I want to bring this to the US, get
Yeah.
it translated. Okay, how do I get distribution? Well, grassroots marketing. get arrested, or I guess almost get detained, almost get arrested. Then
Yes,
what?
that's right.
Then I mean, how did you? Was that was that before you started working with us? I'm assuming, and then you
Yeah,
started.
yeah.
What did that like? What did that look like?
I thought self-publishing meant safepublishing.com. So without being detained. So that's
That's our new tagline. We will keep you
yes.
from getting arrested while distributing your books.
Well, that's for you. Great one. No, it's I of course I try to hire some people, consultants that assist you in getting an agent. They secure your deal. Well, they promise the world, and of course, deliverance is poor or nothing. And a lot of people. Then I spoke within the publishing business, like editors and some others said, you don't want to get published with a publisher. You're out of control. If in 2 months it's not a success, they'll end you, and you cannot do anything about it. You lose your rights. Please do go the self-publishing route. And in Europe, there's a difference. Self-publishing means lesser in some way, and I learned in America that's not the case at all. So I'm glad that I went the other way, and that's when I got introduced to SPC, and then things moved forward.
Yeah. And so let me back up because I think, there's a lot of times people will ask us, hey, I want to publish in multiple languages or I want to publish in multiple countries. Should I publish in the US first? Should I publish in my native country first? Should I do both at the same time? What was your experience? Like, are you glad that you started and published locally in your own language first and then went to the US? Do you wish you would have done it the other way around? Like, what did you learn from that process?
When I made a big change in my life and started writing, and at some point when the things started flowing, I started writing in English because my ambition was to be published with a New York publisher, a big publishing house. So I started writing in English. That's not my mother tongue, of course, but I thought I was good in it. So it turns out you're not. So unless you're a native speaker in English, don't do it. Don't start with writing in English. So
Mhm.
I had to redo my whole manuscript in Dutch based on all the advice I got, and then get it translated. And I'm glad I did it that way because it learned me so much about the publishing industry close to my home, and I learned about the differences. And I think US is a wonderful market, but it's also very competitive. And if you step in without that experience, you can have a success too because you're guiding me and other authors that start publishing. So that's great and clear. But to have like say a home base and that experience, those first steps can be very beneficial. But depends, of course, what you want to achieve and what your, let's say, mother tongue is.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Write in your native language first, and then get it translated. It's going to be easier to write. It's going to be a better book, and you can kind of go about it that way. How did you launch? Let's kind of maybe back up a few steps and say Netherlands specific. How did you launch in that market? Was the purpose to grow your business? Was this more of a passion project? Kind of how did this fit in with what you were doing? How did you launch it, and what came of it? Just local to the Netherlands.
This book is my heart, my soul, and my life's mission. I gave up my business to go on this quest to discover the secrets of life and then write this book about it. So it's my mission, it's my passion, it's what I want to do. And the story is, short story, that I had sold my business. I had to stay on for 3 years because it was a consultancy business, of course, related to me. And after 1 year, I got this insight, this inner voice saying, you gotta quit now and do what you want to do because otherwise you'll never do it. And if I had stayed on for 2 more years, I would have been financially independent and I could do it in a totally different way. But apparently, if you're financially independent, the urge to do things is also different. I see it with a lot of other people that became financially independent. So I think for me it was the right step. So I stepped out of it and wanted to get it out and published. And now I realize, of course, that writing a book is very tough, and getting it edited and getting it finished is tough. Then finding a publisher, I did find a publisher in the Netherlands, but finding a publisher, getting it out there is really, really hard. And then getting it sold, getting it marketed is very tough. So if you know that from the beginning, it's like, oh no, I'm not gonna start that. I'll do something else, which is less fatiguing. But I had the experience here as in the US. No one wanted to publish me, and at some point, I again, it was COVID time. We had a lockdown, and I just printed 2,000 books, and I gave them literally away in my hometown. I just went from door to door, put them in a mailbox. It's not illegal here. With a note in it saying you might want to, you might be bored, you want to read something, maybe you like this. And the results and the response from it was so overwhelming. I thought, okay, now I can find a publisher, because there's so much people saying you got to publish this. Then I found a publisher, and then we got it onward. But we're the same steps. So any advice is just believe in what you wrote, believe in what you want to achieve with it, and just go every step and continue until you get traction.
That's good. And for somebody, I mean, I just did a podcast interview. It'll come out after this episode, but with Alex Strathy, and he talks about seeding copies, this concept of seeding copies, and how, I forget the references that he gave, but one person said, hey, you need 1,000 copies out in the wild to really give your book any sort of legs. And another person said, hey, you need 20,000 copies. So he said, hey, it's probably somewhere in the middle, right? But thinking about, hey, how do I get a base level of books out into the world in a way that people will read it, and that it will start to grow some legs of its own. And so I think it's really cool hearing you say that, of just, hey, how do I shortcut this process and get this in 2,000 hands? And then now, you said, the response was really good. So what started happening? Were people giving the book to other people? Were they telling other people to buy it? Did you have people reaching out to you? Like, what did that response kind of look like?
They were reaching out on social media and the local Facebook groups of our community, and getting back to me, of course. So I gathered that all and brought that to publishers, and some publishers said, hey, now this is interesting. But it wasn't even for sale then. So if you are looking to spread your book with the aim of supporting your business, I think it might be a different route. And if you want to have a bestseller with tens of thousands of copies being sold in the end, I think this is the way. That might be the way to do it, but I don't believe it's giving away is very good, but of course at some point you got to materialize on that. So I don't believe in setting a sales price and then discounting it, because you believe in your message, you believe in your book, what you wrote. I think books are so much powerful, and so much more powerful than many of the online courses that you can do. Of course, they're very good online courses, but many of them are very expensive. And what you read, what you get there is what you can read in a book for a fraction of the price. You only have to read it. Books are treasures. But I think indeed is right. The seeding aspect is very important, to get it out there to people who you get to get momentum, and there's maybe one or two person in there that is really going to give you a stage. Of course, everyone wants a celebrity credential or celebrity blurb or something like that, and they know that, of course, you gotta build up. So probably it's true that it's roughly between the 1,000 and 20,000. 20,000 is a lot. But it's like shooting with hail. You shoot with hail and you hit targets, but you don't know in which direction you have to shoot. You just shoot.
Yeah, we call it the shotgun approach, and the shotgun versus the rifle approach, right? Instead of the spray and pray method, take the rifle approach and focus on the handful of things that'll move the needle. Get reviews, get on podcasts, get your book out there. Amazon ads. What are all the little levers that you can use to get your book out? And a launch team, obviously, that's one of our big concepts that we teach and have authors.
All of them.
Yeah. And so tell me, how did you find out about selfpublishing.com, and at what point in your journey was that, and why did you decide to work with us, all that good stuff?
In this way, when I had my book translated and did all this exercise in getting also 2,000 copies in the US, I met someone, a retired American soldier, who just was really setting about networking in the Netherlands. And he said, I don't like shooting with hail. I like to shoot with laser sharp precision weapons, because he was a precision weapon expert. And he introduced me to Kristen Andrus. She worked for Stedman Graham, the partner of Oprah Winfrey, for over 15 years. And she had been editing his books, and he introduced me to her, and she was in love with the story, but said, okay, we can uplift it. So she really polished it, uplifted to the level that is really, I think, the right level for the American readers and American markets. And we were together on this quest to find an agent or find a publisher, with a lot of disappointments in that way. And at some point, she was indeed introduced to SPC, saying, okay, this might be the group of people that is really capable of getting the book right out there in the right state, with the right approach, the right launch. But you still have to do it yourself. You can launch whatever you want, but the whole propulsion is yourself. So you gotta keep putting the energy in it, gotta keep moving it, gotta keep on continuously putting your own effort in it. And if that's your type of dealing with it, if you can master that, and if you like that, then this is the right way to do that. So it was via, but in the end, that's always the way it works. And of course, you have very good credentials, so that's that added to it.
Cool, that's awesome. And remind me, that book cover. Did we do that book cover?
No.
Okay. I was
My
gonna say,
wife is a designer, and she designed it also for the Dutch market. We adapted it for the American market, and we spoke with your, of course, design experts. She already had designed it because
cool.
and together we manipulated it. So your team helped, but in the end, it was my wife's design.
I love it. Well, shout out to your wife. I wish we could claim credit for that design. I'm like, man, that is a good looking book cover. That looks really good.
Thank you.
What was the most helpful part about working with us, and what was maybe the toughest part of the process for you so far?
I think the helpful part was the experts that you have on marketing and getting it on Amazon, and all that expertise on getting it right, getting all the just taking all those worries out of my shoulders. Say, okay, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to arrange it. The tough part is always where. If you're an American author and you're launching your book with you for the first time, that's a different experience than when you already had done it once, and you maybe become a bit more stubborn or a bit more of my own ideas. So, but that's good. That's friction, and it gives more. It polishes the diamond. So that's good. So I don't think there were any rough parts in there. It's only good where you have the interaction, saying, okay, I might think I was it, and being advised the other way. So you get some not a fight, but you get some discussion, and someone saying, okay, let's do it that way, or do it that way, or I accept your advice, let's go it that way. That's just normal interaction, and that's very good that it has been that way.
That's good. Well, that's good for people listening to this who are either are working with us or are thinking about working with us. I mean, I think there's two things there. It's one, to your point, just being coachable. And we always tell people. Well, I remember my mentor when I was first starting in business. He had this phrase, which just kind of drove me crazy, and I thought was really dumb. But then I kind of came around to it. He said, "Listen and do it." He said, "I know the process of what you're about to do, and I'm going to give you advice, and all you have to do is listen and then do it." He's like, "No, you're going to want to question it. You're going to want to say, oh, that's not right. You're going to want to whatever. But I've done this, and you haven't. And so just listen to what I say, and it will work. But if you try to outsmart it, you're going to not do the core things that you need to do. So just listen." And so it was almost just this super clarifying thing for me up front, where I said, okay, well, I'm just going to listen to exactly what you say, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to work harder than anybody else. And I'm going to be super coachable. And it worked, right? That at that company, I became the number one in the company, number one in the country for all franchisees. And so we've kind of adopted that mantra with a lot of authors that we work with is, hey, you're paying us to give you a process and accountability, but also to give you tough feedback. And I think it's easy to get, but to your point, and it's really impressive how you've done this and working with us is, it's one thing to say that or to understand it. It's another thing to do it. So when someone comes to me and I say, hey, the title isn't good. They're like, hey, I think I've got my title. That's not good. Come back with 5 more. Or, hey, the cover, yeah, it could be better. And then just week after week showing up to these group coaching calls with me and I'm saying, all right, come back next week. Keep working it. It can be infuriating, and you can just feel like you're beating your head against the keyboard or against your computer. But what ends up happening is you get a better book, but only if you listen and take the feedback. And so it's, I know you've really done that. Was there any lessons learned from that, or any advice for people who are kind of going through the process or about to go through the process?
Well, I think you gave it all. I think being coachable is really important. And sometimes if you really have your strong feeling or strong conviction that it should be different, prove it. There are some points where, of course, your point is very valuable as an author, but on the other side, and you're the experts, and you gotta indeed combine it. And I think it's also about what is it you want to achieve. If, of course, you want to get your masterpiece out there in the way you want it, that's your choice. You can do it, of course. But if you want to let's say reach a larger audience, or get a bestseller, or make it as possible, as to get your audience as big as possible, then you should listen to the advice. Okay, if that's what you want, then you got to give up some of the autonomy of what you created, because indeed it will be, maybe better is subjective, but it will be a better project for a larger group, for a larger audience, and therefore a larger success in that way, measured in quantities.
It's good. Let's give a little teaser of the book. So the book's called The Girl Who Changed the World. What's the why behind that? Why a girl as the main character of the story? And who is this book for? Like, who listening to this should say, "Hey, I should get this book."
Oh, now I'm being being stubborn. This book is for everyone, of course, and that's what every author says. And you got to find your target audience, which is your main audience. This book, it had to be about a girl, because what I finally understood in my quest is that what I didn't understand about the world is that our world is so much out of balance, that masculine energy, or call it male energy, or the way masculine energy works, has controlled our world for millennia. I mean, it's in our business system, it's in our economical system, our political system, legal system. There's a big disbalance, and we've taken it for granted by being raised that way. And of course, we have had movements where things were getting more equal. But in aspects, in all these aspects, our society is in that way really out of balance. Anything out of balance will create things that are unhealthy, or will in the end topple over. So one thing that I understood there is, okay, if we want to bring back this balance, I have to, let's say, even maybe stir the pot of sisterhood. I have to maybe challenge feminine energy, women, to maybe stand up, because it's a dual action. It's not about men saying, or the masculine part saying, okay, we got to do things differently. It's the feminine part that has to do the same. And my perception, my observation is that this disbalance is created by both sides, and we need on both sides something to happen to really create a balance. And that's why I called my book also Barbie Meets Oppenheimer, because it's the Barbie movie, which I think is a really clever movie in that way, about patriarchy, matriarchy, and Oppenheimer, where it's about quantum physics. So what I try to explain in this book is, first, it's about a young girl, 13-year-old girl, and she's being taught by her grandfather how you can look at life. She's unhappy, and a lot of things are against her in her life. And he teaches her how you can discover to make that change, how you can really change your world and then the world in a way that things really become the opposite of what you thought they were. And by doing so, he teaches them also about quantum physics, like really in a nutshell, to get it explained. So that's the Oppenheimer aspect. Because in the end, the world becomes a different playground, a different way of interacting with it. It is not the world coming at you in all its massiveness and everything that's set out in stone and everything is unchangeable. It becomes an interaction, a dance with everything outside there. And by making that dance, this girl transcends, and she even changes her grandfather, because, and that's the masculine aspect, she changes him in what he says, but he doesn't walk his talk. And I think that is both a nice metaphor, as well as, for me, kind of a calling to women, feminine energy, to say there's got to change something. Mm-hmm. And if you profess sisterhood but not living up to it, that's my observation, we got to change some things to make this shift, to really get to a world where everything is balanced. And that means changing some system as well. So it's an underlying level in the story, but it's part of it. So that's what I would like to bring out, and that's what part of my, I think, life and soul's mission is about. I want to contribute to a balanced world where things are different. One thing to say about that, and I'll stop. Everything in our world current world in conflicts is created on a masculine level, where there is action, reaction, revenge, and another revenge on that. If you look at conflicts that are violent conflicts, wars, and all the assaults going on in the world, if we want to solve this, like Einstein said, you cannot solve it on the level where it was created. You need a higher level, and I feel that this higher level, overarching energy is feminine, because there are different connections in that way that they can bring and relate to, and overcome the conflicts that we have created and which we are so firm upon.
That's cool. And I think a really good job of the Barbara meets Oppenheimer, that is a phrase that, just instantly captures the essence, I think. So that's a really good descriptor. I would definitely keep using that. And then secondly, I like some of what you're saying. I think a little bit of a polarizing take, which I think is pretty smart. Not only because it's something you believe, but you've probably heard of the 3-star book with no 3-star reviews. It's a Perry Marshall marketing concept. And so he talks about how there's some books that are really polarizing, and it's it's like a 3-star on Amazon, but it's really, there's no 3-star reviews. It's 5 stars from the people who absolutely love it, and then it's 1 star, and then it's arguing in the comments about why the other person's wrong, which drives a lot of book sales. And so I think a lot of people are afraid to take a polarizing stance, and so they water it down and they have a vanilla book. Well, then who cares? No one. And so I like the approach you're taking there. Last question I'll ask is, what would be your parting piece of advice for someone who's in your shoes from years ago, thinking about writing their first book, or someone who's thinking about working with us at selfpublish.com?
I always like to say it's never too late to start something. It's never late to change something. And please do it, because if you have something in you that you want to bring out to the world, do it, because that's what the world needs. The world wants to see you in your pure message. And I like your phrase about the 3 stars, about this polarization, about be your true self in that way. And if that creates a lot of critic as well as praise, then that's wonderful. It's better than the bland 3-star average. Get the 5 ones and accept the 1 stars. That's wonderful. I like that comment on that. So anyone thinking about doing that, please do it, because you're doing the world a disservice not to express your deepest feelings, or your deepest fantasies, or your deepest stories, or your deepest wisdom. Please get it out there, but realize it's sometimes a bit of a tough journey, but that makes it interesting.
Yeah, I love that. Well, hey guys, the book is called The Girl Who Changed the World. Check it out. Where would you like to send people, kind of as we wrap up here? Where's the best place for them to go to check out the book, learn more about you, what you're up to?
Just on Amazon. Amazon is really, really the friend here.
All right. Check it out, guys. The Girl Who Changed the World. Michael, appreciate it.
Thank you, Chandler. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you can be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you could be listening to, YouTube channels that you could be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. All right, number 1, I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help the podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode. If you're on the fence about scheduling a publishing consultation call with my team, maybe you're not quite ready for that, I've got some free training that I think will be really helpful for you. All right, all you have to do is go to register to sign up. Go to selfpublishing.com/free training. When you do, you're also going to get a free digital copy of my new book, Published. And on that training, you're going to learn the next steps, so how to implement with your book. So how to write, how to publish, how to launch successfully. So go to register right now at selfpublishing.com/free training. I'll see you there.